Is sucky cardio killing your rolls? Maybe your cardio is not the problem. I've got 6 key areas to help you build endurance and overall fitness in your jiu-jitsu. Technique efficiency, movement efficiency, cardio, high intensity interval training, explosive power, and isometric strength. Before we dive into specific training, let's address 2 important things: technique and movement efficiency. One of the best ways to conserve energy is by refining your technique. Not only does that make your techniques more effective, but it uses less energy. If you were going to start powerlifting, you'd want to learn the techniques correctly first. It's the same in any sport. A good athlete has good technique. But the best way to do that isn't just to drill techniques, but to study concepts. Let's take arm bars for example. You need to know the basic setup from guard and from mount. But when you're rolling, your training partner isn't just going to sit there and let you do it. You also need to understand the basics of controlling an opponent from mount. Keep their back flat, keep a strong base, isolate the arms. I quite often trick my training partners into thinking that the bridge is there. I make it look like I'm overcommitting for something like, say, an Ezekiel choke, and just as they bridge, that's when I shunt my legs up, get my knees in underneath their shoulders, and boom, their arms are right where I want them. Once I've got their arms there, I can go through my basic steps for my armbar. It's the same with any of our sweeps. We can drill our sweeps until we're blue in the face, but until you understand the basics of what makes a sweep work, you're never going to be able to hit them efficiently. Break their posture, get them off balance, and block their post. Now your basic scissor sweep becomes efficient and effortless. Okay, so let's talk movement efficiency. How do we move efficiently? We improve our mobility, and mobility is not flexibility. It's one thing to be flexible, but it's another thing to be strong and move through those positions. Another big thing here is using your frames correctly. I feel like I've always been wrongly praised for having a great gas tank. The reality is, when I'm in a shitty position, I stay composed, I use my frames correctly, and I force my opponent to use more energy than I am to maintain their position. And that's where you need to understand the concept of escaping. Frame, create space, and move. When I'm stuck in mount, I'll use a bridge to create space so that I can turn my hips and recover half guard. Everyone's expecting you to go for the bridge. They're not expecting you to half-ass it, drop back down and hook your half guard. And half guard is a much better position. I can do it without using a whole lot of energy and by forcing them to use more than me. A simple way to do this is, instead of exploding up into the bridge, I just slowly lift up and hold myself there, which gets them off balance. They're all shaky, wobbly, trying to recover the position, and then I drop back down. Once I'm up on the top of the bridge, I've got the space I don't necessarily need to explode up there to do it. But as soon as I'm up there and they're off balance, they're using energy to maintain their position. I'm not. Another way I do this is, rather than trying to be stronger than my opponent, I try and make them weaker. An easy way to do this is by twisting their spine. I'm in mount. If I can't get my knees where I want them, I want to try and crawl my arms up the mat underneath their arms, but they're quite strong. They can resist that. All I need to do is turn their head to the side, and all of a sudden that arm comes up quite easy, which gives me the space to get my knee in and trap the arm. Twisting the spine is a great way to make your opponent weaker. Okay, so now let's look at cardio for jiu-jitsu. And to be honest, you probably don't need to be doing more than, say, 30 or 40 minutes a couple of times a week. There are 2 schools of thought when it comes to your cardio for jiu-jitsu. Half the people are saying, don't bother doing any cardio because you're gonna build that cardio while you're rolling, which isn't entirely wrong. The other school of thought is, look at elite fighters. They're doing lots of running, they're doing lots of jump rope, they're building up their cardio as well. A great way I've found to improve my cardio for jiu-jitsu is by doing it a little bit more specific to jiu-jitsu. I'll do intervals, because when you think about it, when you're rolling, you're not maintaining a consistent slow pace. You're doing it in bursts. Hill sprints are a great way of doing this. Sprint up to the top, spend a couple of minutes walking back down, breathing through your nose, getting your breath back. Doing 5 or 6 rounds of that is probably all you need to do. Another great way is 500-meter row with a minute rest in between rounds. Again, 5 or 6 rounds of that. That's going to emulate kind of what we're doing in rolls anyway. You do need a cardio base for jiu-jitsu, but you don't need marathon cardio base. Okay, the 4th thing we're going to look at is high intensity interval training, or HIIT. I do this 3 to 4 times a week, and I do it as a combination of strength and cardio training. I do a lot of circuit workouts, 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off, or I might do 5 or 6 exercises consecutively with a rest in between, 4 or 5 rounds. Kettlebells are great for this, but bodyweight training is just as effective, and you can do that anywhere. A good rule is to make these workouts full body. So break it up by doing some pushing exercises, some pulling exercises, and some leg exercises. If you want to break it down further than that, do a vertical push, a vertical pull, a horizontal push, a horizontal pull, a hinging motion for your legs, and a squatting motion for your legs. Doing one of each of those 6 movements is going to give you a great full body workout and give you plenty of core in there as well. The next thing we should discuss is improving your explosive power. Sometimes I incorporate this into my circuit workouts, or sometimes I'll just do a power session on its own. Exercises like jump squats, hang power cleans, explosive pull-ups, explosive push-ups. For a power workout, you're looking at doing reps of 3 to 5 on each exercise with a rest of 2 to 3 minutes in between. The last thing we want to work on is our isometric strength, our holding strength, by doing things like dead hangs, farmer's carries, or eccentric chin-ups. This is particularly important for our forearms and our back muscles, our pulling muscles. Think of every time you're trying to hold somebody into your guard, you've got your grips, you're pulling them in, you want to be strong there. How often do your forearms shit themselves in competition? Because you haven't built up the isometric strength there. Sure, doing lots of curls is great. Doing lots of wrist curls is great for your forearm, but you're never in a roll doing this, are you? We're holding, we're pulling in, we're being tight, we're using our pulling muscles. Doing exercises like, say, a seated row, knock a few sets out first and then hold that last one and then do a really slow eccentric phase, which is the lengthening of the muscle. Let it back out nice and slow. Have a rest, do 4 or 5 sets of that. I also do a lot of eccentric pull-ups. Exact same method. I'll do a set of, say, 3 or 4, nice full range of motion chin-ups, and then I'll hold myself at the top for as long as I can, dropping increments at a time. Sometimes I'll do a set of, say, 2 or 3 of that, but then I'm more or less done. Your gas tank is not just about your cardio, it's about a combination of these 6 things and understanding them. You can't be explosive all the time. That is a very limited energy supply. Our body doesn't use energy just one way, it uses it multiple ways, but that's a whole nother video on its own. You look at guys like Conor McGregor, a notorious power puncher, but the longer the fight goes, the less of a factor that becomes, because that one punch knockout power, you can't just keep reproducing that. You use that a few times and miss, you've more or less drained that tank. It's the same with your explosiveness in a roll. Just look at that spazzy white belt. You know they've got a minute, 2 minutes at best before you're just playing with your food. It's because they've depleted that explosive energy system straight away, and then they're done, most likely for the rest of the night. Also, you can't hold your breath. Once your muscles are deprived of oxygen, that's them done. So control your breathing. That's where your slow cardio sessions pay off. I can't recommend enough when you go for runs, breathing through your nose only. It's gonna feel like shit at first, but it's only gonna take a week or 2 before you get used to doing that. You should only be breathing through your nose at your warm-ups before the gym as well to get your body ready for that, and then think about that while you're rolling. Am I breathing through my nose or am I breathing through my mouth? Believe it or not, you get more oxygen when you breathe through your nose. Swimming taught me a whole lot about my breathing. I used to do a whole lot of endurance and CrossFit events, and it was doing the swimming as cross-training for my running that taught me about the timing of my breathing and the importance of that. Then once I started training CrossFit, I just emulated those same things specific to CrossFit, and I now do the same thing with Jiu Jitsu. How you breathe is super important. But at the end of the day, the first 2 things we talked about, technique efficiency and movement efficiency, are probably the most important things to get right first. I hope you found this useful and you can start implementing this to your rolls now. Before you go, jump down into the comments and let me know what it is you're struggling with. And give me a like and subscribe so that more people like you can find this channel. Us.